Okay.
All right, you guys, welcome to another transformation session in the Spiritually Kinky Entrepreneur. Yes, we've changed names. Yes, we have gone all in on Spiritually Kinky, and we're adding people to this group that are leaders, that are small business owners, that are entrepreneurs, that are people that are becoming, that need support and in a community to remind you of who you are, because it's not about the resistance. It's about the remembering. It's about the remembering. And so if you've been taking a lot of personal development and you've been doing a lot of healing modalities, but you've been doing it with the intention that you are broken, that you need to be healed, that you need to be fixed, that you are not it, then what is going to happen is you are just going to create more results in the problem structure. And so I want to get into some foundations tonight because there are some things that you need to know that are very foundational, because success and failure isn't personal. It's just structural. And so if you haven't gone through the training yet in Wired for Worthiness that's in here available to you, you got to know about structure, because here's the truth, you guys. Here's the truth is that you are creative force energy. You are creative force energy. You literally rode in on an orgasm of masculine and feminine energy. Your spark ignited, your heart started, and you are so freaking intelligent and so creative that you grew a body. But through this experience, you had to forget who you really are. And so you had to create some structures. And we work off the premise that there are three consciousnesses. And I get that there's a lot of information out there, but this is the premise that we work off of. And it's the best premise that I've found to understand it. That we've got our self-conscious, which is our ego, which is rooted in judgment, which is the good, the bad, the hot, the cold, right? We had to experience what hot was so that we could understand what cold was. We had to know how the way of the world was. We had to be able to define it and understand it and create these things to keep us safe and to keep us alive, because we cannot take care of ourselves when we are born, right? So we had to do what we needed to do to stay alive. And if you're here, congratulations, you've made it, right? And now you're being called to become who you really are. And that is the creative force energy. And there are some basic things that you need to understand about your physiology scientifically, and also visionary, right? And so we're going to kind of put this all together tonight, but this is the basics that you need to know. So you've got your self-conscious speaks in the language of thought. You have your unconscious, and your unconscious is what allows or denies you to have what you want. So your self-conscious chooses, your unconscious allows or denies, and your superconscious will make the way. But here's what's interesting. Here is what is interesting is that you can actually change those unconscious instructions that have been running your life. And let me just tell you, some of those instructions are carried down in your blood and bone from 7 generations. And we are creating, and we have created from surviving, we've created survival in the problem structure. And so as we go up these levels of consciousness, our unconscious speaks in the language of emotion, right? This is the body, emotion. So if we want to create a life that we love and we want our identity to be able to receive it now, it's not that our identity has to die. We just have to redesign our identity, right? We're here for the redesign. We're here for the level up. But it takes practice, and it takes consistently showing up, because you'll find your voice. You'll find your true voice. You'll connect to this, and all of the stuff that you're going to learn in here, all the stuff that you're going to learn on the podcast. And if you haven't gone to spirituallykinky.com yet and signed up for the wait list, please do. That is so helpful. If you guys go across any social media, Go drop some love on the content, on the reviews, on anything that's out there. It's so helpful, because what you'll understand is that when you're just starting out, right, growth can be slow to start. And we're starting new on all channels, but I'm talking to a lot of people and this is really resonating. So I really, really want to get you to take a deep dive into this, because if you skip the foundations, you're in the problem structure. You're in the problem structure. And so then you've got your level of super conscious, which is your insight, information, and intuition. And the super conscious, think of quantum field. This is where you can literally be instructed and create in your vivid imagination, because your brain doesn't know the difference between your imagination, the emotion that you would create from your imagination, and an actual experience, right? So we're actually going out and creating a life that we love. We're embodying the emotion of it, the end result emotion of it. And then when we set up that way, coming from the youngest version of our future self, being instructed by who we want to become, being instructed by that future life you love, the health and vitality, the true nature and purpose, when we're pointing in that direction, now we're creating a new structure, which is like a wheel, right? It's the flowing structure. The problem structure is like a rocking chair going back and forth, and your identity will never allow you to have it. So you can create the thing, you can have the relationship, you can get the job, you can start the business, but the truth is that you won't allow yourself to have what you really want, and that is the end result emotion. You don't actually want the thing, you want the way that the thing, you think that the thing is going to make you feel, right? And so as human beings, we have created in the problem structure that we have to avoid, fix, heal, and get away from our past, right? That somehow, some way, the future will be better than the now. And that's a false premise, because the only thing that we have is the now. And so if your body, if you're unconscious, if your nervous system won't allow you to have it now, you won't allow yourself to have it now then, because it's just a bunch of nows, right? It's just a bunch of nows. But what's really cool is that in creative development, which is what we do, is when you get into the creative structure, now you've set up creative structure, right? You're focused, you're supercharging your focus, because here's the thing, babe, is you are creative force energy. And energy takes the path of least resistance. You have just created the path of least resistance to your safety in your unconscious set points. So as we start to move these set points, what's going to happen is resistance is going to arise. It's part of the process. And it can feel a little bumpy in the beginning. It can feel a little overwhelming. It can feel a little anxious. It can feel a little scary, because as you make this shift from being the oldest version of your past self into the youngest version of your future self, guess what? You're no longer going to know how. You lose the sight of how, which is what your self-conscious is rooted in, is it needs to know how. So it's almost like this battle that you go back and forth through, of trying to know how, and also knowing that your steps, you're not going to know how. That's why in Spiritually Kinky, we talk about building value, right? The building value isn't for who you really are. You already are value, babe. Like, your worth was never up for discussion. But as far as the human goes, the values that we can use as stepping stones can help us light that step when we don't know how, right? And we get to choose. So that's why I love, not only we're going to talk about building our vision, we're going to talk about building our value, and then we're going to talk about embodying our voice. Now, the other thing I want to tell you guys about is, because I know somebody had yesterday had a really bad day with anxiety, and that's a real thing. Like, those survival emotions that your body is running off of, those are real, right? Those are real intense emotions. There is no doubt about it. But here's the thing, is that there are things that you can do so that you can get out of yourself, out of that tailspin. I know, because I've done it. And that is always coming back to your heart. Putting your hand over your heart, coming back to your heart, sitting down and connecting to your true voice. Because what has happened is because we have been living in survival mode, your body has been conditioned with survival emotions, anxiety, depression, boredom, numb, fight or flight emotions. And what's happened is there's a thing called epigenetics. And what's happened in the way that your body works is that your thoughts trigger your emotions trigger your decisions trigger your actions, and then your actions create your thoughts, and it goes round and round. But here's the thing. So once your thoughts have been created that trigger your emotions create this chemical response that feeds your cells. And your cells have become little adrenaline junkies. So your cells are little addicts. And it's just the way that we've been designed. And what a beautiful design. And what a beautiful design that we can actually retrain our unconscious. We can actually rewire our brains. We can actually emotionally retrain our body to actually allow what we want to manifest and be open to receiving it. And this is why I get so excited about Spiritually Kinky. It's because in the first 11 episodes, this is like what I'm telling you, how we can start to walk through it. Right. And it's a matter of understanding that you are the creator. You are the creator, babe. That's the only label that matters. You are the creator. And so when you make this shift, you have to be willing to be courageous. You have to be willing to let go of your past. You have to be willing. You have to walk with a willingness. And then when you've embodied, I am the creator and I get to choose, that's when we go into aligning with your true choices. Now, at first, when you first start, just start with the true choices. It took me almost a year to really solidly lay in my true choices. And I will let you know what my true choices are right now, because this is where, when you understand that you are creative force energy and that everything is created twice, once in the invisible, once in the visible. When you understand that, and you understand that that vision, when you create a sensory experience with those end result emotions, literally you are like collapsing time into that timeline. That's the power of your focus, right? That's the power of your conscious choice. That's the power of your flow. But you have to do it in the creative structure. And if you're doing it with any other intention other than because I love it, you're in the problem structure. But it's an unfolding process. So it takes a bit, right? So that's why I say play around with the true choices first. I choose to create a life I love. I choose health and vitality. I choose to live my true nature and purpose. And I choose to be the primary creator in my life, not the only creator in my life. And I allow all others to do the same. So literally, when you start to align with that in the morning, you can do that in 10 minutes. There's a meditation. Let me know if you want it. But you can start doing that. And what that is going to do is that is going to start training your ability to focus, your intention, right? Your attention. You are controlling your focus. You are controlling your intention, because intention matters. And this is the part where you get to own it, right? You get to. And here's the thing is, when you're first starting out too, it's not about never losing your focus. You're going to lose your focus all the time. It's about how quickly you can get realigned with who you really are. It's a remembering, right? And as you set up this creative structure, you don't have to change who you are, because what you're training your unconscious to see is that you are going to be you here, and you are also going to be you here. And the identity doesn't have to die. It's just a redesign. And so as we start to see this resistance that comes up, what we can see is that this resistance was just created by us, for us, out of love, to keep us safe, to keep us alive. And there's nothing wrong with it. It did its job. It did an amazing job. You're alive. You are here. Congratulations. Right? It's just now time for your level up. And so this is where we begin to move from the problem solving world to the creating world. We move from healing to creating. Because let me tell you, babes, is that once you get this, you will never need another personal development course again. Now, you can grow your capabilities and you can grow your gifts, but no matter what you do, have, or be, that will never ever change the fact that you are you. You are you then, you are you now, you've always been you. Like, that is the creative force energy. That is who you really are. But it's an embodiment process and it's a practice. And the first part of this is creating the awareness around it. But you have to set up the creative structure first. That is how you step into the magnetic moment. That is how, literally, in a month and a half, I have been able to literally manifest all of these creations into life, write 3 books in a week, write at a 12-week academy in a couple days, like all of these things, because when you're in the creative structure and you create the path of least resistance to a life you love, you just live in flow. And it's amazing. And it's fueled by your energy and your essence and all of that. So this is an embodiment process, and the embodiment process is finding your voice. But here's the thing, when you're in the creative structure, the only thing that will dictate your results is if you take inspired action in the creative structure. Because when you do that, there is no right or wrong decision. And doesn't take a huge weight off of it. Because if you're in the problem structure, you know how many right or wrong decisions there are, right? And you will think yourself into all of the right and wrong decisions. And all that is doing is that is your body's attempt to keep you safe, distracted from taking the actual action towards creating a life you love. So what I always tell people is that it takes 10 minutes in your morning to take control of your focus, to do your choices, to get into the emotional embodiment of it, to see the resistance that comes up, to write it down, come to here, we can do a recode, post it in the group, we can do a recode. If you give me permission to tap into your superconscious, then I can do a recode and add it to my morning recodes. But when you do that, right, you are just resolving the resistance, and then there's only action to take, right? There's nothing to do. There's only action to take, because you're creating a life that you love. And then you're being guided by your super conscious of like, what's that next action step? So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not giving you advice. Literally, the future that you are creating is the one that is instructing you at what action to take next, because you are not going to know how this all comes together. I could not in a million years have laid out the path to creating Spiritually Kinky, the podcast, the book, the app, the event, the anything. In a million years, if you had given me a million tries, I would not have put together the sequence of events. So this is where you have to create with innocence, right? If you didn't have a past, what would you create? What would you create? What would a life you love look like? What would a life you love feel like? And the simplest life plan that we can start with is to ask ourselves and to understand that we are the only ones that, if our life is only as good as how we feel about it, and we're the only ones that gets to decide how we feel about it, how do you want to feel about it? Do you want to feel depression? Do you want to feel anxiety? Do you want to feel numbness? Do you want to feel adventure? Do you want to feel naughtiness? Do you want to feel responsiveness? Do you want to feel love? Do you want to feel grace? Do you want to feel beauty? Like, you get to choose. And when you own that, then you can say, okay, what are some of the things that actually just naturally inspire those feelings? Mine singing country songs on a sunny day, driving around in my car, having somebody in my car to sing to, laugh with, road trip with. Why do you think I love Uber driving so much? Is because I literally am doing what I love, going around town, meeting new people, singing country songs in the sunshine. Like I love that. I love it. I absolutely love it. And so those things just naturally inspire all of those great feelings. And so, what is that for you? And they don't have to be big things. Sometimes it's sitting in a quiet, in a quiet corner in the morning before anybody else gets up, and you're just drinking your tea or your coffee, and you just feel the steam rise up to your nose. It's just like the best feeling, right? So, what are some of those things that inspire those feelings? And you can get connected to those. And that's really where I specialize, is helping you get connected to those emotions. Because a lot of people, what I have found, are walking around numb, and they actually don't know what a lot of those emotions feel like. And that's where I started. I mean, I started feeling gratitude first, and I could feel what that felt like. And that was really just due to Ryan and Grateful Dead, and just feeling really grateful of all my friends and all the people that I have met so far. And so that was a really easy one for me. But the other ones, like joy, I didn't know what joy was. I didn't know what passion was. I didn't know what purpose felt like. I didn't know what any of those things were. So I built an emotional vocabulary so I could start to experience what those emotions are. And that's how I can really help you guys too. Um, is getting into those end result emotions. And there's no shade on it if you're walking around numb. It's just the name of the game with the survival emotions, and most people are living in survival mode. Even when we think that we're not living in survival mode, Dr. Sean will back me up on this. Like, you can go and actually get your test done to see like where you're living most in your nervous system. And I was like, oh no, I'm not living in my fight or flight mode. No, like I'm chill and everything. And I looked at it, I was like, wow, yeah, I am. So, we've just designed ourselves this way, and there's no shade on it. It's just that you get to choose now, right? You get to choose. And so this is how you start taking control of those, your three most innate superpowers: your choice, your focus, and your flow. Because you have to start, and this is what I was talking about with the epigenetics, that if you try and work on your mindset, and this is why I think starting with your mindset is one of the most ineffective, just frustrating fucking ways to try and do it. And I did it for 25 years. That you work on your mindset, work on your mindset, work on your mindset, positive thinking. And I'm like, fuck, none of this is working. I still feel like shit. Nothing has changed. And what's going on? And that's just the truth. And it was so frustrating. And now, once I started understanding epigenetics, I understood what was happening. So if you try and think positive, you have a positive thought, triggers a different emotion, right? You have a positive thought, triggers a different good feeling emotion. Well, here's what initially happens, is that when your cells don't get their little adrenaline fix, their little junkie fix, they actually will send up a distress signal that will influence your way of thinking, that will change your thoughts, that will create the emotions that will trigger their fix. Isn't that interesting? Right? And so we've trained our nervous system with these survival emotions. So I want to be able to give you guys an emotional vocabulary where you can look at the most magical menu you've ever seen, and you get to choose. You get to choose because you're the primary creator in your life, and you get to choose. And claiming your yes, and claiming your choice, and standing in it, and taking the action is not an an easy path. It is not an easy path. It is it's not hard. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's not easy. So when I talk about walking in value, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs in here, there's a lot of business owners in here, all walks of life in here. When I talk about value, I want to give you some stepping stones that were really super helpful for me when I started. And the first three values, when I left corporate America, and you may be at a different place, this may be exactly where you are. We're all at different spots. But when I left corporate America, I had not been walking in my value. I had not been walking in my alignment. And there's no shade to that. I did the best I could with the instructions that I had, right? I did the best I could. I was doing the best I could. So are you. And all of the problems that you think that you have are not actually your problems. You just have been disconnected from who you really are. So it's time to plug in, right? It's time to be the bright light that you are, because you literally are made of stardust. And when you start stepping into your vision, when you start stepping into your value, and you start showing up in the way, whatever way you're trying to create, and you start showing up in value, right? You start to own your yes. And when you say yes, you fucking mean yes. And when you say no, you mean no. And you give yourself permission to create a life you love, because that's what you came here to do. But it goes against everything that you've been taught. So it can feel a little bumpy and a little wobbly. And that's okay, right? That's okay. I had some days. And sometimes your resistance when you do this creative structure, and the fourth part is like noticing the resistance, because you don't notice the resistance first, right? You have to control your focus, consciously choose with intention what you're trying to create. It's got to be a true choice. You get into the end emotion, right? Compared to that, what's it like now? Not to judge, just to get a measurement. What's it like now? And to understand that in creation, there's always tension. In the problem structure, and tension always seeks to resolve itself. That's a spiritual law. So in the problem structure, the tension is on trying to fix the emotion and the thoughts, right? To fix the unsolvable problem of not being it. In the creative structure, the intention, the focus is I choose to create a life I love. I choose to create. So it's coming from your true alignment. And then when you create that tension, now in the creative structure, it's like a rubber band. So instead of swinging in the problem structure, in the oscillation, you're now creating the tension. This is your current reality. This is your desired reality. When this is your focus, when you take the inspired action, you don't have to change who you are. You don't have to be better. You don't have to be anything other than who you are right now. And you can create this. Now you're creating the tension towards what the desired reality. Now, here's something that you need to know, because this happens, and I didn't quite get this. And this is why when I chose to do the podcast, the book, right, I started building the app. I started building the event. I started building the next thing, because there's something called magnetic alignment. And the spiritual law of tension seeking to resolve itself, when you have a rubber band and it's stretched, right? The tension wants to come together, wants to resolve itself. As this is your current reality. As this moves into your desired reality, what happens to that tension? Starts to let up. And this is why you'll get closer to what you're actually trying to create, and then you'll let it go, because the tension releases. So in the creative structure, there is tension, baby. There is tension. There's no creation without tension, but the tension is now the seed, right? That's transforming, and that's going to emerge into the plant that is going to emerge into the creation. This is the creative process. There's 3 different stages. You've got the seed, the sapling, and the completion, right? And this is also an understanding that what you create doesn't change you. You can create the cancer or you can create the doctor, right? Like neither one of them changes who you are. And so we have to detach from the understanding that our creations change us, because we want to take everything personally. And when we create something or creating something that we don't want or that we don't like, right, that's a good indication that we're in the problem structure. So hopefully that makes sense. I know that that was just so much stuff, but it's imperative, because if you truly want to create differently in your life, this is how you do it. Wholeheartedly, this is how you do it. Now, this isn't the only way, but after my whole search for this conscious education, this is the easiest, like it really is the easiest, most funnest possible way, because when you're in the creative structure and you are aligned with who you really are, you will naturally walk in value, because you are creative force energy. You are creative love energy, and love recognizes love. Love recognizes love. And here's the thing, when you're in the creative structure, right? If you're walking in values, and here are the values that I want to give you as you create content, as you start to put yourself out there, as you start to become vulnerable and allow yourself to be seen for the light that you are, for the voice that you are. Even though there are people out there that are going to tell you that you're not enough, you're not worthy, that you suck, whatever they say, this is your embodiment of the light that you are. And just understand that the fear that comes with putting yourself out there, out on the internet for other people to see and to judge and everything like that, understand that they're just doing the best that they can with the information that they had. And it doesn't change who you are. And when you come from that wholeness, nobody can hurt you, because you choose, right? You get to choose. You get to choose how you feel. You get to choose how you react. You get to choose what values you walk in. And it's a practice. It is a practice. And so there are these are the 3 G's I'm going to give you when we're talking about posting content. Is first off, you have to have grit. Because if you're not taking inspired action and you're not taking action, not taking action is actually taking action. But what you're doing is you're saying that you care about something, but you're giving your unconscious silent instructions that you actually don't. Because your behavior is the loudest form of communication to your body. Your behavior, your action. So that's why for me in the morning, my 2-inch domino action was always sitting for 10 minutes, putting my hand over my heart. That was my behavior. That was my action. That was my instruction to my body that this was important. It was a priority. I did it every single day. I showed up for it. And that 2-inch domino changed my life. So whatever it is, you have to show consistently. And the best way that I have found to do that is to create a vision. Now, if you guys haven't seen the origin story, make sure you watch the origin story. It's in this group. You'll know. I mean, that's me embodying my voice. That is me when I tell you that when you go in front of the camera, when you tell your story, when you share that with people, that is pure vulnerability. It's pure vulnerability, and you can see in there, like, that was me, that was raw and that was real, babies. That was raw and that was real, and that was me. And was it scary? Absolutely. Was there resistance? Absolutely. And if you want to see what that resistance was, literally, if you go to Spiritually Kinky, you'll be directed, and you can actually get some snippets when you sign up for your free gifts. You'll see some snippets in there as I'm creating this stuff, because resistance comes up when you get to these deeper levels. Resistance comes up, and I would be creating something, and I would be like, oh my God, what if my dad dies before I ever have a chance to tell him that I love him again? Like something like that. And I would just be like, whoa. And it would just be all of this resistance. And so many memories came up. I'll share something else with you. I remembered a memory back when I was about 4 or 5. And when I talk about that, we've created these suffering obligations of love. They can look like addiction, it can look like abuse, it can look like um, all of it, right? All the things we think are shadows. But what those really are those are suffering obligations of love that we created as a child to try and take away our parents' pain because we felt like we could. We felt we were the closest to our unlimited being, and we thought that we were strong enough to take it. And we tried. And the thing is that instead of taking their darkness away, it just came onto us. And so there's a lot of amazing change processes that we can do when we recognize these family patterns. And I'll share some of mine. When I first started this work, some contracts that I made was, Mom, I'll be a better victim than you so they won't hurt you. Dad, I'll stay small so that you'll love me. But I remembered a memory, and this was a big one. And when I say that, like you can play deep on some of this stuff, and I play deep, I mean, massage therapist, Reiki master, I play deep. And so I got to this memory, and it was must have been about 4, I'd say between 4 and 5. And my stepmom was leaving my father, and they were doing a lot of drugs. They were drinking a lot. We were just, I was put in a lot of inappropriate situations at that house. I was put in a lot of inappropriate situations at my mom's house with my stepdad. And I remember sitting on the bed with my dad, and he was crying because she was either going to rehab or she was leaving him or making an ultimatum or something, and he was crying. And I put my hand on his shoulder, and I remember saying, I just want you to be happy. Dad, like, I just want you to be happy. I'll do anything to make you happy. Boom. Contract created. Now I can look back at my life and see how that contract, different names, different faces, different experiences, same result. Right? But you can give those contracts back. And actually, in this group, if you go to guides and you go to start here, there are actually 4 new contracts that you can actually print out and sign that you are now what you have been through in your past. You did not consciously choose, but now you can. Right? Now you can. And here's where you get to own your consent, you get to own your permission, and you actually get to take an inspired action that you're creating these new choices. Now, I will also let you know that the true choices, so it took me about a year until about a month and a half ago until I claimed my true choices of what they were. I will tell you, my true choices have evolved. I do those 4 core every morning, because the truth is that if you're not living those 4 core in your life, then no other choice is going to matter, because those are the 4 core, right? Those are the 4 core. So, but as far as creation goes, right? What's your flavor? Like, what do you want to create? What's your flavor? And so that's where Spiritually Kinky came from. Because, I used to think that like we had to create like we were going to create something like Divergent, Hunger Games. And if I'm the primary creator in my life, I'm going to choose something like 50 Shades of Grey. I'm going to choose something like Spiritually Kinky, because that to me is a much better flavor, right? That is a flavor that I want to experience. I want to just slide into. I love, those are the saucy flavors that I love. And you get to choose, right? Now, as I choose, because of my values, because I'm aligned with who I am, you can create in the way of love and respect, but you get to choose. You get to choose your flavor. And you don't even have to create in the way of love and respect. But if you're here, then you can probably see how, when we create not in the way of love and respect, how those structures don't have any integrity, right? Because structure has integrity. So yeah, I know that this is a lot, and there's been so much going on. There's been so much going on. There's been a lot of moving parts with everything. So, any support, any love, any comments, anything like that, here's what I'll tell you. If you are a beginning content creator and you aren't going out and giving love to the creators that you love, nobody will show up for you. And this is how most people start. They just want people to look at them. They want people to see their content. They want people to do the things. They want people to show up for their course. They want people to pay for their product. They want people to do this, but they're not giving that out first, right? And so when I talk about grit and showing up every day in your choices, and it's going to take grit, the second is generosity. Generosity, because if you're not willing to give it to somebody else, but you have the expectation that people should do it for you, that's coming from your wounds. That's coming from your wounded feminine or your wounded masculine. Like that's coming from your wounds. That's coming from your knotted identity. And it's not going to happen, right? Because what you'll find is that love begets love. Now, when you're starting in a creation, it's slow to start. Spiritual law, slow to start, right? It is slow to start, but it's the steps, right? It's that 2-inch domino. And if you don't know about the 2-inch domino, a 2-inch domino can knock over another domino that's 1.5 times its size. So if you were to lay out 59 dominoes, I think it's 59, it's either 59 or 54, and you were to lay out that many dominoes, by domino 24, that domino would be as big as the Eiffel Tower. By domino 34, it's going to be as big as Mount Everest. But here's the amazing thing is by domino 59, that domino is so big that it bridges the gap between the earth and the moon. The 2-inch domino. It's what I call the Kung Fu kit, peeps. For me, it was the getting connected. It was the finding my voice, right? It was the connecting to who I really am every single morning, 10 minutes in the morning. Now it is, I do this in the morning, every single morning, but now I do my true choices with it. And my true choices, let me tell you the level up of my true choices. So here are my true choices. I choose to be rich. I choose to create a podcast that's revolutionary, that impacts the hearts and minds, or that touches the hearts and minds of millions of people. I choose to create a global brand that touches the bodies, hearts, and minds of millions of people. And I choose a husband that I can live out my wildest dreams with. Those are my true choices. Those are my true creations that I'm working on top of the true choices. And those, for me, are a level up. I've never said the word husband. I came from a family that both of my parents were married 3 times, and none of them in any shape or form were happy. To me, I've never seen a successful relationship. I was always scared to say husband. I told myself a long time ago that it wasn't safe, it wasn't good. It was so tied to money and worth and manipulation and all the ways that I grew up. And everybody's is, in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, never saw that. But when I stepped into and really embodying my voice, and when we talk about vulnerability, showing up and being willing to put that out there for other people to see, or when they don't show up, because that sometimes can be just as hard. If you fall in love with a piece of content or you're something that is so meaningful to you and you put it out there and you've got the expectation that everybody should care about it, let me just tell you, nobody cares. Nobody cares until they do. But it takes a while. It takes a while, and it takes an evolving of your voice, right? So you don't have to ask me, is it right? Now, crafting, yes. And we can craft right? We can craft things, but I'm not here to save you. I'm not here to give you advice. I'm here to unleash you and to hold a mirror up to who you really are so that you give yourself consent and permission to choose what a life you love looks like and just go create it. This isn't personal development. This is creative development. It's different. And you just get better results. You just get better results because you're freaking creative force energy and your success and failure isn't fucking personal. And if you're taking it personal, you're in the problem structure and you're just in your ego because the ego is what judges. The ego is like, this is good, this is bad. Super conscious, intuition, insight, unconditional, right? That's it. That's it. And so this is just your redesign. So if you just start to take your choice and your focus back, you're already in the shift. You're already doing it, right? And so it's not about never losing your focus. It's not about taking the right or wrong step. When you're in the creative structure, there is no right or wrong step, and you're not going to know how. But what she'll determine is, especially when you connect to here, and let me just tell you that scientifically, they have been able to measure that your heart energy can go within at least, they can measure it at least 3 meters outside your body. Now, I believe that this is more than this because I have been playing with heart energy with my Uber rides for the last 7 or 8 years to see when I can tell people are affected by it, to see how they are when they get in my car, to see what the conversation is. I've been studying people. I've been studying people my whole life, but I've been really listening for the last 7 or 8 years to really understand where people are. And what I have found and what you'll understand as you begin finding your voice and embodying your voice, and that is embodying your vulnerability. That's embodying your vulnerability is a strength, right? Is a willingness. Because here's the truth is that whether it's been a homeless man, whether it's been a mental patient, whether it's been a worker, a CEO, a leader, a millionaire, a famous person, all parts just want to be seen. All parts just want to be seen. Now, what you may experience, especially if you're somebody that plays deep, and especially if you're unexperienced as in your embodiment, but you're experienced in depth in your wound, what you'll find is that as much as people want to be seen, it's also their biggest fear. And so when they do get seen, there's a knee-jerk reaction. There's a rejection. There's a shove back, right? You just hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. And can we just see that going on in the world right now? Right? It's reactionary. But what we need to understand is that they're just doing the best that they can with the instructions that they have. Now, I'm not saying that you need to take it. I'm not saying that it's excusable or that they have any justification, but I will tell you that we have all done it. None of us are the exception to the rule because this is how our super conscious hero's journey is. We've all had to learn in the problem structure. And so this is where when we take radical responsibility, in one of the best ways where we can keep the wisdom but let go of the emotional trigger is just that I am the primary creator in my life, not the only creator in my life, and I allow all others to do the same. Then guess what? If you're co-creating something and it's not pleasant, guess what? You can create to shag your ass out of there, right? And one of the best ways to do that, and I'm going to show you just this little trick because this is just such a great shift. And it can be, and I'll tell you, I don't know if I have a pen over here. Okay. I'll tell you the story behind when this happened to me because this was not easy. When I tell you that I understand that it's not a fucking easy road, I get it. So last year I met somebody, and if you don't know, I have been single for the last 5 years. Before that, I have been in protective mode because I have had so many abusive male relationships, and I just kept going from one to another. Not physically abusive, like when I was younger, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually abusive. And if you want to put labels on narcissists, all that. But the problem is that I was creating from my wounds, and so were they. So now I can understand and look back that I actually attracted them into my life because first off, that was what was safe. It's what I had survived enough times. And let me just tell you, being cheated on as something that is safe sucks ass, right? Being abandoned and rejected as something that is safe sucks ass. Like it really does. So, but that's what I was creating, not consciously, people. Like, we're not creating this consciously, and you didn't have a choice, right? You didn't have a choice about what you were given, but you do have a choice now. And this is where you can stand on this stone that I am creator. But this is just a way that you can help let go of that emotional trigger to it where we just want to hold on, we want to blame, we want to point the finger, all of that. Um, and just allow it to let it go and to release the emotional trigger from it, because when there's no emotional trigger from it, we can just create what we want, right? It's the emotional trigger that keeps us locked in the past. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I had met somebody last year, and it was in a very unique time. We definitely had a spark. And if you guys have seen the origin story, it comes in a lot of signs, right? And it just has. And this did. And I didn't know what it meant. Um, but it was definitely aligned. But you see that point in somebody where they can either choose to show up or they don't. And I let myself get excited that this person was going to show up. And because of the conversation that we had and everything like that, I started feeling safe that this person was going to just continue to show up, no matter what it was, right? Whether it was friends, lovers, whatever, like this person was just going to show up because I really did care about this person. And I ended up getting a text. I sent a text like saying like, "Oh, I'm thinking like this is making me think about you," or something like that. And I get a text back a text about an hour and a half later, um, saying that, I met somebody. I think that she's the one, and I wish you the best in your endeavors, or something like that. It was just, I mean, it was one of those texts. Are aware of what actually is going on in your nervous system, so I could stop what I was doing and say, whoa, I just felt that. Like my nervous system just flinched, like I just got hit. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when I felt that flinch from this guy and I read that text, I was devastated, right? Another rejection, another person, like just that didn't have the respect to just show up. Didn't do what they said that they were going to do. Just another person, like. And so I was really upset. And I remember calling a friend, and I just remember like crying to him, and I just needed to cry. I just needed to cry, and I cried like, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, and I got to talk it out with my friend, and he was all right. Like he didn't really know what to do because I don't think he'd really ever heard me cry before. Not many people have. But I did. And what I realized is that I was creating heartbreak. Like I was creating heartbreak. If I'm the creator of my reality, right? I get to choose. And so what I did is I took a piece of paper and I drew, I don't know if you can see it, but I drew a line right down the middle. And whatever you're creating, whatever you find yourself creating that you're like, huh, I don't like this creation. Like, why am I creating this? Like, but you got to take responsibility for it, because you may not be creating the whole thing, but you're creating your portion of it, right? So you can choose. And then I would put, I don't know if you can read that, but I would put heartbreak on this side. And then what I did is I crossed it out. You can do it with a better pen. And then I said, okay, what do I want to create instead? And this is where I started to craft my relationship choice, right? I choose to create, there were several versions, because it's like you try and say things with such clarity that somehow, some way, you're going to get so specific that you're going to trick the universe or something. I don't know if that made sense, but when I was crafting this, I didn't just say what I wanted. I still chose the choice thinking that I couldn't have it. Well, I choose a soulmate relationship that's intimate and loving and all of these things. Like, I can have that, but again, like, when you're trying to craft it so specifically, you're kind of losing it. Anyway, that's where my true choice is. I choose to create a husband that I can live my wildest dreams with. Like, I own it now. I choose it now, right? I don't have to get all tricky with my words and all that. Like, I know what husband means to me, right? Because I know what that value is, and I'm showing up in that value. So I'm going to attract somebody in that same value. And that's where all of this stuff starts with you, right? So we want to point the finger at everybody else and say, well, why aren't they doing it? Why aren't people showing up for my content? Why aren't people showing up for my courses? Why aren't people showing up for my business? Why aren't people showing up in my relationships? Why aren't people showing up? But then we don't actually look at like what responsibility we have and how we're showing up in that. And that's where Spiritually Kinky comes in, with the conscious education that's going to show you how to build that relationship with yourself, as well as how to build that with others. But it's you have to stand on the stone that I am creator. So when I did this, and I've got heartbreak on this side, and then I started to choose something else. And I choose to have a relationship that I can trust. And now it's changing my focus, right? It's breaking the pattern that I had been repeating had been heartbreak. Now it had been programmed, right? Whether it was mine, whether it was passed down, that's what I was choosing. I was choosing to feel heartbreak. Did I actually have all of the information to feel heartbreak? No, like, there's so much that we don't know, right? There's so much going on that we don't know. And there's so much going on to the path that in front of us that we don't know why things happen the way that they do. And the moment that we label them as bad, we actually stop them from turning into what they were meant to turn into. And if you don't really get that, like, haven't you ever had a blessing that's turned into a curse? And maybe a curse turned into a blessing? Is that just me? So the more that we can release the emotional attachment to it, because it's not supposed to stay, right? It's just supposed to move through us. It's a message. Now, granted, in that situation, were there parts of me that were grieving, that were sad, that were, that, like, all of it? Yes. Yes, there were. And I acknowledge those parts, and I let them know that this was not them. And to be sad and to say poor me and oh my god and woe is me and I hate men and all this stuff. No, like, no, thank you. Your time, your energy, and your effort are the most valuable things that you have. And the quicker that you realize that you have control over that, and it's through a practice, the quicker you want to get on it, because that's actually what's going to create the life that you love. That's actually going to create the money structure. That's actually going to create the things that you really want to create. because otherwise, if you don't take control of this, like you're just creating from your past and you're just going to keep repeating in the same problem structure. So I hope that that all made sense. I know it was a lot. I'm going to go ahead and stop it for tonight, but this is the foundation. This is the foundation. And so this is what you really want to get first. And when you feel like you're caught up in the survival motions, when you feel like you're caught up in that unconscious just momentum and you're like, whoa, I just feel like I had amnesia. Like, where'd the last 7 hours go? Like, I've just been on autopilot. Then set up some time to reconnect here. When I first started this transition, and especially connecting to my heart, sometimes, like when I was in corporate America, sometimes, man, I just walked around with my hand on my heart, honestly, for a while. I didn't care if people looked at me funny because the more I connected with who I was, right, the less everybody was monkeys. I didn't get distracted by their monkeys because let me just tell you, everybody has monkeys running around. You've got them too. They have them, you've got them. We may have different names, we may have different beliefs, different experiences, but we've all got our monkeys. So, a good little metaphor is know where your monkeys are before you start pointing the finger at somebody else's, right? Um, but I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you guys like this. And what I want you to do is when you get in the creative structure, start noticing your resistance because you are going to, when you start listening to your heart, it's going to come through in a different voice. It's not the same voice as up here. It's going to be an instinct. It's going to be a knowing, right? And you follow it and you take the action in it because that is actually the truth, right? Might it be uncomfortable? Absolutely. Might it be scary? Absolutely. This is where you walk in grit, generosity, and then here's the other one, grace. Give yourself grace, babe. This is new conscious education. If you're here in the beginning, it's a little bit of a bumpy ride, but we're going to make this as fun and as graceful as possible because your worth has never been up for debate. And all of the problems that you think that are your problems are not actually your problem. You actually don't have a problem. You're just in your remembering, right? You're in the remembering. And if you're here, you're already in the shift, right? You're already doing it. So if you need some help with this, let me know. We can do one-on-one sessions. If you haven't seen the results that I've been getting people, literally, I know that Micah had said that, after our first call, he felt like he got more in that call in an hour than he had in the last 5 years. When I'm telling you that 99% of people are in the problem structure, including the holistic, the healing, the doctors, the witches, the personal development, like the self-help, it's in the problem structure. If it doesn't have you standing on the stone that you are the creator and you get to choose what you create, you're in the wrong structure and you're just going to get those oscillating results. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, what you have. Structure has integrity and it yields the same results. So as we create this new river, this new energetic flow to creating a life you love, you have to know what that is, right? You have to start playing with that and experiencing that with what that is. And so next week, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and walk deeply into how to do it in vision, how to do it in value, and then how to start embodying your voice. So let me know if you have any questions, but one of the most helpful things that you can do is when you're noticing the resistance, and the resistance is going to be the monkey mind up here, the I'm not enough, your super conscious will never speak to you in a negative way. So if it's in a negative way, it's coming from up here. But just write it down. You don't have to get entangled with it. And it's an unfolding process. So just write it down because there's going to be more resistance that comes in. And if the resistance is causing an emotional reaction like severe anxiety, depression, like all of those survival emotions, put your hand over your heart immediately. This is going to release oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. It's going to actually open up your blood vessels. New energy is going to flow into your heart. Your heart, you're going to have a heart on. And what's amazing about this is now you're starting to chemically retrain your nervous system, because now you're in the body. Now you're reinforcing it with action. You're doing all of these things, and it's those little steps that create momentum. It's those little steps. And when you start to create momentum in the creative structure, then you could just go for what you want, right? Because the resistance, you're just letting all unconscious parts know that they can have new instructions that are going to work towards the increasing your pleasure and decreasing your pain, which is ultimately what all parts want to do. It's just that they're running on old instructions. So hopefully this was helpful. We're going to go into the 3 V's next week really deep. But yeah, if you guys want to write down your resistance and you want to put it in the group, if you want to put it in the comments, all of it. What I love about recoding is it's permission based, and we are going to do an initial recode. It is a separate process, but I just want to make sure everybody's got the initial recode, because there are specific instructions that we do give the unconscious, because the unconscious is always listening. So it doesn't matter if it's live or on the replay. I am going to do a recording of that, but not yet. But the recode is permission based. So you have to say, I give Dustin permission to connect to my super conscious. And then what I do is then in the morning when I'm doing a recode, I can actually bring up that resistance. And because you've given me permission, we can actually work together. So right now I'm working with like 2 or 3 people that have given me permission that when I do the recode, then I do it with them with their permission. And then what you may notice is, if that's you, then what you may notice is that that resistance may just be gone and you're just taking action, which is kind of a new experience too, where you're like, whoa, like I just took action. Like I just created that shit. Like I just did it. Like there was no resistance to it, because you can actually just rewire that resistance and you can recode that resistance easily. And science has proven that we can do this, that like, just like you can forget your keys, you can forget your trauma. It's just releasing the emotional trigger of it. So that's kind of the science. That's the spirit. And then we're going to get into, in Spiritually Kinky, we're going to get into the sensuality part of it, because it's all about touch, right? How we touch ourselves emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. Intention matters. So we're really going to dive deep into that. So again, if you haven't gone to spirituallykinky.com yet, make sure you go. Make sure you sign up for the wait list. You'll get notified as soon as that goes live on the 29th. Plus, you're going to get amazing bonuses totally for free, meditations to get you started, all that good stuff, plus all the good stuff that you have in this group too. So I love you guys.